Hello everyone, welcome back to another Minecraft modding tutorial. Today we're going to be creating a custom item, registering it, adding a translation for it, and also creating a creative tab for it. So the first thing that you'll notice is I cleaned up our main mod file a little bit. We moved our mod ID to a constant. And then we also removed most of the tutorial code that they gave us. So to create this, the first thing we'll want to do is create a class that's going to contain all of our items for the mod. So I'm going to create it in the package init, and it's just going to be called mod items. When it comes to registering items, there's two main ways to do it. There's either to register the item in an event or to use a deferred register. For this tutorial, we'll be using the second method. So to do that, we're going to create a new concept field called items. That's going to be of type deferred register for items. And to create that, that's equal to deferred register.create. We're going to take deferred registries.items as a parameter, and it's going to take a mod ID as the second parameter. To explain this a little bit, the deferred register is a register of items. So that's why we pass item as the type parameter that we register later. That's where deferred comes in. So to create that, we have to use this create static method. And when specifying when creating a new registry, it either takes the registry object class, or if it's a forge registry, it takes a constant from there. So that's why we use forge registries.items. It also needs to know what mod is registering these items, so that's why we pass the mod ID. The next thing we want to do is actually create the item. For this tutorial, we'll be registering a tungsten ingot into the game. So what we want to do here is do public static final registry object item. This is a registry object for an item instead of just a regular item, is because the item's being registered later. So because the item is not available until it's actually registered, it needs to have a wrapper class. But this will be called tungsten ingot, and this will be items.register. Takes the name of the item. So for this, we're going to be called tungsten ingot, and then the actual item to register. Notice that this is a supplier and not an actual item. That's because it doesn't create the item until the registry event. And then when we're just going to create a basic item, so that's why we just use new item, and the item takes a set of properties. These properties allow you to do different things, such as adding tool types, setting the max stack size. For example, ender pearls only have a stack size of 16 instead of 64, and other things. But for this item, we don't need to set any properties. Now we need to actually register our items. To do that, in our main mod file in our constructor, we're going to do mod items.items.register. And then this takes an event bus. The event bus that we're going to be using is from FML Java mod loading context get mod event bus. And now our item should be registered. Now we're going to have to create the model for the item and the actual texture. So to do that, we're going to create a folder called assets, and then our mod ID, which is going to be tutorial mod. I'm going to create two folders here. One's going to be called models, and the other directory is going to be called textures. So now inside of our models, we're going to need to create a folder called item slash It's going to be called whatever the item we're registering. For us, it's tungsten ingot.json. And this is what the file looks like. So for our parent model, we're using item/generated, so that's just the default item model. The texture for that model can have multiple layers. For us, we're just using one layer, starting at index 0, which is layer 0. And this is the resource location for our texture. So on the left-hand side, we have a mod ID, which is tutorial mod, and then the actual path to the texture. So for this, we're just going to go to Assets, Tutorial Mod, Textures, create a new folder called Items. And then here we're going to put the tungsten ingot texture. So now if we run the client, we should be able to actually see this ingot. So now you can see, now that we're in the world, we have our tungsten ingot. It has a texture. Unfortunately, it doesn't just say tungsten ingot. Instead, it gives us this long resource location for it, being item.tutorialmod.tungsten ingot. So to give an actual name to it, it is really simple. What we have to do is just create a new folder called lang, and we're going to give an English translation for this. So we're going to do en_us.json. And for this, it just takes a JSON object, the keys being the translation keys. So for us, it's going to be item.tutorialmod.tungsten ingot, and the translation on the right-hand side. So this is going to be tungsten ingot, like so. So now we're going to run again and hopefully see the actual item. So we've hopped into our world, and as you see here, it has the correct name now. So we have this item, but the only way to actually get it is to do give our username, the tutorial mod, tungsten ingot. I would love to have a actual tab up here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put it into the, let's see, we're going to put it into a tab, but we have to decide which tab we're going to put it into first. Let's put it into the miscellaneous tab for now. So to do that, all we have to do is go to mod items. In our item properties, we can set the actual item group. So there are some default item groups. So from here, we're going to use miscellaneous. Very simple. Now we can actually run the client and we'll be able to see it there. So we've created our tungsten ingot and we've now assigned it the miscellaneous item group tab. So if we go to miscellaneous, and if we start to scroll down at the very end, we can see our tungsten ingot. So we could keep using the miscellaneous tab, but personally I would want my own tab for the mod. So that's what we're going to be doing next. So to create our own item group, it's really simple. All we have to do is create the item group. So inside our init, I'm going to create a new class called mod item groups. And we're going to create a new item group. This is going to be called mod items. That's just a new item group. And you see that our item group will take a actual item stack to create the item and also a label. So for the label, we're going to say mod items. And for the item stack, we're going to say a new item stack. That's going to take an item. So for that, we're just going to do mod items dot tungsten ingot. And for some reason, it does not like this. Yep, so we just actually have to get the item. We just have to do dot get. And then now in our mod items, sub item group dot misc, we can do mod item groups dot mod items. So now if we run the client again, we should be able to see our own custom item group. You'll notice that for item groups, you actually don't have to register them. So we popped into our world, and now if we open up our inventory, you'll see that there is a second page. If we switch over to the second page, we can see our item group dot mod items, and we can see our tungsten ingot. So we actually have to add the translation for item group mod items now. So in our mod item groups, I'm actually going to change this to mod items. And inside our lang file, we'll do item groups dot mod items is equal to mod items. It actually looks like I have the wrong translation key for our item group, so let's change that. So it should be item group dot mod items. Now one thing I also want to change is I'm going to add a dot tutorial mod. That way if another mod adds a item group called mod items, there won't be a conflict there. And to do that, now all we have to do is for the label, I just have to add tutorial mod dot mod items. So we're in the game now, and you'll see that we have the second page, and here we actually have mod items. That contains our tungsten ingot. Alright, one last thing I'd like to do before the end of the day is I really don't like creating an anonymous class for each item group. So I'm going to create a utility class called icon item group. This is just going to extend an item group. We want to implement the methods. And what this is going to take is we'll have a supplier for an item stack. We'll call this icon supplier. We're going to generate a constructor that matches the parent constructors. And then when we create the icon, we can just return icon supplier.get. Another thing that I want to do is, well, it's nice to just have a item stack supplier. I'd also like to have suppliers for just items. Like so. And then we'll actually have to map these. So this is going to be icon supplier dot so this will just be a supplier that returns a new item stack of the icon supplier.get. We'll do the same thing here. Simple. So then now in our mod item groups, where we create the mod items here, this can be a lot simpler just by doing something like this. New icon item group takes in the label, which is just going to be the string that we had from before. And then our actual item supplier. So here we can do mod items dot tungsten ingot. And since the registry object is also a subclass of supplier, we can just use the registry object directly like this. Looks like they do have some errors here. So because of type erasure, these both won't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create some static methods. It's just going to be called of item. Then we're going to say this is new icon item group label new item stack icon supplier get. And then we also want to create one with a with an index. And then inside our mod item groups, we'll want of item. And that will be all for today. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down in the description. And if there's anything else you'd like to see soon, please also let me know down in the description. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.